Hi, welcome to Scott Talks, and I'm here with Jesse Leone. And Jesse, I have to say, I'm just kind of blown away after that story. I mean, um, the journey you took us on, um, the back and forth between the street Jesse and the little Jesse, uh, and the activist Jesse is. It's like watching an actor play three different people in one moment, but much more authentic. And I have to say, Jesse is an accomplished. I mean, your list of what you do is beyond. I mean, I would just go on and on, but we'll start here. He's a sex trafficking thriver and survivor, an author who tells a story. Your TED Talks has over 40 million views. It looks like you have more than one TED Talk, by the way. That's the one I looked at. You are an activist for the Latino community, the LGBTQ community, imprisoned. You could help me with a couple more. I feel like I'm not doing you justice. And you guys just tune into the interview. It was just such a rich interview, as Laura said. I'll just start by saying that at 11 years old, Jesse had an experience that would take him on a journey for the next 7 years of his life, as I guess we say a sex worker.
I would say it took me down the horrors of sex abuse, human trafficking, substance abuse, and homelessness. And
yeah, which you admittedly say is not an uncommon journey in this world for kids. Yeah, and it's such a heavy subject, but you speak about it, and allow us to create such curiosity about it. I want to thank you for that, because I think it's important to talk about. Your book, I'm Not Broken, and you can finish the title because I'm terrible at Spanish, but I'm Not Broken.
And the Spanish version, No Estoy Roto, published by.
Thank you very much for that. I appreciate it. Yeah. Is the journey. You're a Harvard graduate. You're a UC Berkeley graduate. And you're Manahushery's friend, which is up there on the list. She is a lovely advocate for Laura, and I have enjoyed every time that all the moments I've gotten to spend with her. So, but maybe you could just talk a little bit about, as a parent, as people who live in the world, and we fear. There's a moment in the interview with you and Laura where it's obvious that your mother doesn't know what's going on with you, and she finds out. And I think as parents in the world, what we always want to know is, how can we better, be advocates for our kids without scaring them, without overprotecting them, like how can we be more preventative to understand what might have been going on with little Jesse at the time?
I think my mom would try when she saw the change. I went from being a nerdy kid, and I'll send you the photos. I went from being a nerdy kid to a wannabe looking gang member.
It happened pretty quickly.
And
wow.
My mom would beg me, like, mijo, please don't dress like that, dress like this. And my dad didn't support her. I was dressing like most of the homeboys did, and it gave me a sense of acceptance. The reinforcement was that I became cute. Little nerdy Jesse was no longer that nerdy Mexican-looking alfalfa. He now became, oh, damn, he's cute. He ain't wearing his glasses, even though his head hurts. Even though he sees everything blurry, I'll deal with it, because now I'm accepted by the girls. Now the guys accept me. I'm one of the guys, and I look tough on the outside. And not really tough, but people find me attractive. And when it came to the sexual exploitation and the commercial sex trade of the streets, that was also, in essence, a niche market. People would pay
for that particular. Was it Was it dangerous for you to be authentic and to be yourself? Was that more dangerous than it was to fit in and to not be authentic to yourself? Because what I sense even now at this time of your life is there's this authentic Jesse that is super proud and thriving in this world. And it seems like at some point, I think all of us as kids make a choice to hide who we are against the world because somehow we don't feel safe about being
It's
authentic.
still hard, being authentic and being vulnerable and being true and in our purpose isn't easy. It can come at a
Right.
cost. I have to know my audience, know who I'm working with at all times.
Mm.
When you're an executive in the finance world, working in banking institutions or government, as I have, both state and federal government, and when you're walking into a boardroom, no one knows what it feels like unless you've gone through it. Where you open a door and you see, in my case, it was, men in business suits. I'd say 99% of my perpetrators were men in uniform and men in business suits, predominantly white men.
Wow.
And this isn't to
Mm-hmm.
make an attack on white men. It was, even as an adult, with a Harvard degree, a UPenn postgrad, and a UC Berkeley undergrad, working in the places that I've worked, when you open a door and you see, no one can notice. And I think women understand this more than anything, where you walk into a setting and someone that's experienced, there's someone there who resembles someone that's caused you harm. And so that they may be the best individuals in the world, but for a minute, you better hold it together. I got to breathe. I got to pull it together. I got to walk through the room, not just as a man of color, but as a survivor of trafficking and sexual abuse, where these individuals actually may look like somebody that's caused me harm. And I better suit up and show up the best way I can, be the most eloquent, use proper English. I got work to do, and you only have a few milliseconds to do so. And so,
Mm.
unless you've gone through it, you don't understand that kind of pressure. And so, taking the risk to write my memoir in both English and Spanish, being a public speaker and an advocate, it's hard. It's hard to get that vulnerable. Why are you doing this? Why do
Yeah.
you? What? Oh my gosh, you're going to be seen as, the Latino guy that was sex trafficked. Don't nobody want to talk to you. Ooh, all that stuff goes through your head. But then what happens? I get a Scott, I get a Laura that reaches out and says, "Hey, your story really touched me. Hey, you know what? I know someone
Well,
that's experiencing something similar."
that was something else I wanted to ask you. Like, could you tell us a couple of the people who've actually reached out to you that have had experiences that you being vulnerable and being open changed their lives or changed their opportunity for their lives to
That I
change?
can't do. I won't do, in the sense of,
Oh, okay.
respecting confidentiality. The hard part for me is when a parent reaches out asking for help because local authorities have not stepped up and don't know where to go. And they're living
Mm,
what my family went through, and in particular, me and my mom, with a system in place that just didn't know how to help a young boy. And what I've had to do is, I have my own company and I need to protect myself, and I need to abide by, even though I'm not a mandatory reporter, I need to abide by making sure that I also protect myself and I'm not violating someone's confidentiality or privacy. So what I'll do is I'll call individuals at the federal government and state government, mostly federal agencies, say, "Hey, there's this situation. Um, can I have a certain individual reach out to you without mentioning who they are? Just general overview." And I then go back to the individual that reached out for help and say, um, "Please reach out to this organization and these individuals. I haven't disclosed your name or personal information, but they're expecting to hear from you or from an individual. So please feel free to reach out." And that's what I tend to do the most. What's been a blessing for me is individuals within the Hollywood industry that have read my memoir and have been moved And so much so that we're exploring potential projects because they've identified with the story itself and want to lift up this issue for all communities to make sure that these issues get addressed.
I mean, I can only imagine how impactful that format would be. I think a lot of people learned from that format. I know I'm a visual learner, and I move to emotion that way. And the reason I talked about the authenticness and is because I believe my own recovery allowed me to find a sense of peace that I had not experienced before, and control of it. And I admire your journey so much so that I'm just moved to emotion about it, to see someone, not only in repair and living a life, but giving back in a way that um, I would say only inspires people more to want to do more and be more and understand more. So we at the only one in the room definitely applaud you, and I'm so glad that we were able to have this interview. And I encourage you guys, if you have any amount of curiosity, we had a very intimate interview and a very just loving explanation of this journey on Laura's episode yesterday. So tune back into the episode. And is there anything else you want to say, Jesse, that you didn't get to touch on?
One thing I didn't get to touch on is I would like to encourage the listeners to listen to the audiobook of I'm Not Broken and No Estoy Roto. It was very heartfelt. I read it, I narrated, and in both English and Spanish. And it adds a whole different experience. I've had people that had the audiobook on the way home in their car, and then when they got home, they were so into it that they would read through the paperback, and as I'm reading, and they felt that I was narrating the journey for them, which I was, but it's a very emotional read, and it takes it to a whole different level. So yeah, I would encourage the listeners to please support local authors. Please support LGBTQ Indigenous authors in our communities, and support us and listen to our audiobooks. It makes a big difference.
I have to tell you, even having Laura read, because one of the first things Laura and I did together was read together. So when she wrote the book and then read the book, I was like, "Oh, you have to hear the book." And I have friends who often just listen to it because there is another dimension about it, having the author read the actual words that were written. So thank you so much, Jesse. I can't wait to meet you in person.
And we'll definitely hang out soon. And please tell Laura once again that I really appreciate her having me on the show, and thank you for all you do.
Thank you, Jesse.